we want to know that the variable at the beginning is going to be the set of name, okay? The set name or the set numbers. So a lot of them were A. The most common one is going to be X. It could be N, it could be R, it could be S, T. Any multitude of variables can be used to call a set, right? You could have a set of months that begin with the letter A, right? So then you'd be going through April, August. All it is an identifying characteristic. This portion right here, this is the characteristics or the given properties. So the way that we would read this at the beginning, we would say the set X is greater than or equal to the negative 3 and less than or equal to 16. And then this X with the element sign that corresponds to element falls into Z, which would be integers. Okay, the homework eliminated this portion, but they gave you the set name and the set characteristics. And more or less, it's just a way to describe a set of numbers. You could say the domain of a function is X. Okay, so that would be the set name. The domain is all integers that is greater than -2. So you'd have X is greater than -2 as the characteristics, and boom, that completely and totally satisfies the domain. What they wanted you to do in the homework is they wanted you to take it from this and they wanted you to turn it into interval notation. Okay, and when you're looking at interval notation, there's two types. You have bounded intervals and you have unbounded intervals. Bounded intervals have an endpoint at both sides. Okay, so A is less than or equal to X, which is less than or equal to B. Okay, working on the left, A is less than X and X is less than B. And you can see the difference here is that whenever we have a bracket, we're saying that that endpoint is included within that interval. So, other words, or in layman's terms, the brackets correspond to less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. In interval notation, we always put the smaller number on the left and the larger number on the right. Okay, so in this case, A would be the small number, B would be the big number. You can see that when it's just greater than or less than, we are just working with parentheses. That says that the endpoint is not included within that set or within that interval. You can have inequalities that look like this, where A is less than or equal to X, but X is less than B. So in interval notation, that would be a bracket next to A, comma, B, parenthesis. Okay, you always want to put the bracket next to the number that is included in that set with a parenthesis next to the numbers that are not included in that set. Okay, so these are your bounded ones. That's when X falls within these this certain range of numbers. But then you have what's known as unbounded intervals, meaning that as long as it's greater than or less than the number, any number is going to apply. And that's where you get positive infinity. This symbol right here kind of looks like an 8 turned on its side. That's known as the positive infinity. This one with a negative is known as negative infinity. Okay, negative infinity being the smallest number that you can think of or imagine. Positive infinity being the greatest number that you can think of. Okay, this bottom one here, where it's negative infinity is less than X, which is less than positive infinity, that's another way of saying all real numbers. Okay, because if you're going from negative infinity all the way to a positive infinity, and negative infinity being the smallest number that you can imagine, positive infinity being the greatest, makes sense that that would correspond to all real numbers, because all numbers are going to fall within that range. Okay, so like I was saying, the homework wants you to take it from here, the first couple, this set builder notation, and we want to turn it into interval notation. All right, they also give you number lines on how it works. Okay, am I making sense so far? Are there any questions so far? All right, cool. So now we're just going to work through a couple problems. Okay, I'm going to pick one. I'm going to do number 1, number 9, and I'll do number 12. I'll do 1, 3, and 12. That way, you guys, and then I'm going to give you the rest of the day to get your stuff turned in. Okay, I still have quite a few missing assignments that are showing in Infinite Campus. Also, if you don't have access to your Infinite Campus, feel free to send me a chat during this and I will reset it and I will email you back. Okay, because I have that capability. So, for number 1, it's given to us in an inequality. And it says the set of numbers A is less than or equal to -3. Come on, chat, pop up. Where'd you go? I do not have access. Okay. Holly, that's from my pre-calc book. I just went to it. It was really nice and easy. Okay, so Pablo and Bella, I'll get your stuff reset as well. Okay, so number 1, from set builder notation, it says the set A is less than or equal to a -3, and we want to write this into interval notation. Okay, first we have to ask ourselves, is this bounded or is this unbounded? Looking at it, there's no other number that constricts how low A can go, right? It doesn't constrict it at all. So this would be an unbounded one. So we're going to have a negative infinity or we're going to have a positive infinity. In this case, we're talking about numbers that are less than -3, and that's the solution to the set. So our unbounded piece of our interval is going to be -infinity, with our bounded piece being at -3, or the endpoint. Now, is -3 included within that set? That's where you got to pay attention to your inequality sign. This one is less than or equal to. Okay, so since it's less than or equal to, that means that -3 is a part of the set, and we would put a bracket next to -3. That's all it is. That's expressing that inequality in interval notation, which is what we're looking for. Okay, interval notation, like I said, it's not difficult at all. It's just, if you haven't done it before, it can be confusing, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a pretty easy thing to work with. So this would be the answer for number 1. Let's look at, or 7's a good one. Okay, so it says that X is our set name, and the characteristics is that X cannot equal -4. Whenever we have this, we're going to have a union. Okay, union, the symbol is expressed as a U. Okay, and more or less what this is saying is that our set contains all real numbers as long as it's not -4, right? Because X can't equal -4. So we're going to have 2 unbounded intervals with a union. The first one, we're going to take care of everything that's negative. So we're going to be unbounded at -infinity. And then we're going to have -4 with a parenthesis. Okay, and the parenthesis is saying -4 is not a part of that set. If it was a bracket, we would put, if it could be -4, then we would put a bracket. But in this case, we're specifically told X cannot equal -4. So, and then our union symbol, just a U, stands for union. We're bringing those all together. And then we want to start it at our next endpoint, which is -4. So we're going to have parenthesis showing that -4 is not included, to a positive infinity. Okay, and what that says is that any number from -infinity up to a -4, not including -4, is a solution. And then any number greater than -4, not including -4, is a solution. Okay. Making sense? All righty. So let's go to number 9. Oh, I gotta double check my maps, kids, real quick. Is Braden here yet? Nope. Okay. Okay, number 9. Go back to Zoom, share the screen, screen 2. Yes. We want this one. Why is that there? There we go. Can everybody see the PDF now again? Hopefully. Awesome. So that's the solution guide. Why do I have the solution guide open? There we go. Okay, so number 9, we're given a number line that looks like this. In the same way that we covered number lines with a closed circle or an open circle, that determines if that is part of the set or not. Okay, this one, it doesn't give us a variable. All it says is that the solutions to this are anything less than -1, right? So that's going to be unbounded. And then the union with anything that's greater than 1. But you can see it has an open circle on -1 and 1. So that corresponds that we're going to have parentheses. So our answer for number 9, got to end this share so you guys can see. Our answer for number 9, once again, unbounded interval from a -infinity up to a -1 with a parenthesis, because the open circle says that -1 is not included. And then the union with this interval from 1, once again, not included, to a positive infinity. Okay, making sense? Awesome. Now if you look at number 10, it's a straight line, and everything from -5 to 5 is included in our set. So how would we express this in interval notation? We would go bracket from -5, comma, to 5 bracket, saying, hey, -5 is the low point, 5 is the high point, everything in between is included, including -5 and 5. Okay? I know I got a lot of emails about that. So now that's what I have for you. That's your process on working on the homework. Okay, so if you haven't finished